Have you ever been in a situation where you're just absolutely dreading being there? Whether it be the people, the environment, and you're just questioning, why on earth am I here? Maybe it's somewhere repetitive, like a job you don't like, or people you constantly have to hang around, or perhaps maybe a team that drives you absolutely crazy. You think, why, God, am I here? Why am I in this mundane place with these people, in a place where I don't want to be? Believe me, I've been there, you've been there, we've all been there. But recently, I've been really thinking about God's plans and God's purpose in each one of our lives. And it made me question, why does God have us in situations where sometimes we don't want to be there, whether it be a certain environment or with certain people? And then I read this one passage in a book called The Reed of God by Caryll Houselander, and it absolutely blew my mind. It's this book right here. It's on page 46, if you own it. It reads like this. Sometimes it may seem to us that there is no purpose in our lives, that going day after day for years to this office or that school or factory is nothing else but waste and weariness. But it may be that God has sent us there because but for us, Christ would not be there. If our being there means that Christ is there, that alone makes it worthwhile. When I read that for the first time, I stopped and paused and really took that paragraph in. One of the hardest parts of the human condition is finding purpose and hope in the midst of uncomfortable situations. But as Paul writes, the spirit is completely contradictory to the flesh, and that means that where the flesh finds misery, the spirit finds purpose. And more importantly, the spirit finds hope. What Caryll Houselander is writing here is that perhaps in these situations where you don't want to be in, with people that really don't reflect how you want to be, without you there, Christ may very well never get there. This book also alludes to Luke chapter 1, verses 41 through 44, where Mary's cousin Elizabeth is pregnant with John the Baptist. And Mary, even though she's pregnant with Jesus, decides to trek the long way to help her cousin. And when Jesus is there, John the Baptist leaps for joy in his mother's womb. In other words, this is an allegory that Caryll Houselander describes as the life inside of Elizabeth jumped. See, this may very well be what happens when we have Christ inside of us and we're around people that have dormant life. People that we don't want to be around because maybe they're unpleasant. Maybe they follow worldly ways and don't follow Christ. When we bring Christ to people and we're kind, loving, and we share the good news and we're always positive and we always can switch the vibe when we're there, that makes the life inside other people jump for joy, even if they don't necessarily realize it right away. We have to remember that Jesus hung around with sinners even though he was perfect. Think about us. We're sinners. So to call some people worse than us is a pretty far-fetched statement. I mean, we're all sinners. We all stray from God. However, if you think the degree of sin from somebody is maybe far worse than yours, consider that Jesus was perfect and he still chose to hang around guys who were hot-headed and spiteful. Heck, Jesus hung around people that he knew would eventually deny even knowing him. They're betrayers. We must remember we are all sinners. But even so, some of us have Christ, whereas some of us haven't found him yet. So if you're in a situation where people are glorifying sex, drugs, money, bragging about doing foolish things, like the book of Proverbs says, a fool will brag about his wrongdoing. Do not fall into the trap of wanting their approval. Instead, bring the light of Christ to them, because without you there, it might not ever get there. With you there, there's Christ. Without you there may not ever be. And that, my friends, is how we find purpose within situations that we don't necessarily want to be placed in. And you don't have to be in these situations permanently. Again, you must guard your heart. If there are people that are actually glorifying sin way too much, do what you can, bring the light to them, and if you don't want to persist after you're put in there multiple times, then you can politely leave. But don't fall to their level. Remember, do not be ashamed of Christ, because if you're ashamed of Christ, when you rise to him when you die, he will also be ashamed of you. Your mission is to have Christ accompany you everywhere you go, and to bring people to him, not from necessarily words, but more so by action. Jesus found himself in these situations so many times, like with Nicodemus, or with prostitutes, or with people who denied him, or even the two criminals next to him when he was being crucified. He showed love and acceptance to all of these people. And so I just want to leave you with this. I'm going to reread it one more time. This is the Reed of God, page 46. Sometimes it may seem to us that there is no purpose in our lives, that going day after day for years to this office or that school or factory is nothing else but waste and weariness. But it may be that God has sent us there because but for us, Christ would not be there. If our being there means that Christ is there, that alone makes it worthwhile. Thanks for watching. Follow the call to Christ, defend the faith, bring that light everywhere you go, and God bless you.